Good evening. My name is Dharmendra Gordon. This is Vegan Synergy Meditation number 23. I welcome everybody who's here now and those who will be listening to the recording later. Wherever you are and whoever you are and whatever you're doing, just take a moment right now to make a little gap for yourself and just get into a space where you can sort of space in and allow yourself to sort of drift away from the day you have had today. Just allow yourself to sort of drift into neutral and let that space kind of open up and take you into a fresh, empty, open space where you can receive a different kind of input, a different kind of experience. And in this kind of open, fresh, new space, just allow yourself in your own time, in your own space, in your own pace to just do a few releasing breaths, however you do that, so your body can just sort of readjust and reorient to the present moment, out of your mind and into your experience, into your senses. Just check out what your senses are bringing to you right now. If your eyes are open, just notice what's going on around you and listen and receive whatever sounds are coming in. And if there's any kind of smells, aromas, odors, just be aware of that too. And nothing to do about that, just take that in. And then just sense how it is to be in your body. Whatever that might feel like. The different parts of your body, what kind of messages, what kind of signals are you getting when you tune into your body? And you can tune into your body through your belly, where you can, through your belly, kind of feel your whole body. And maybe there are certain places that need your attention more than others, and you can let your awareness go there and just be present with those places. Or you can just allow your awareness to be in all of your body. And as you're enjoying and relaxing and or experiencing what it's like to be in the center of your body, this week we're going to go into the 12th Life Code, which is called With Awareness. And the spectrum of consciousness goes from self-infatuation to the finer things to the hollow bamboo. With awareness is the essential flavor of the 12th Life Code. It's how you experience your environment as you're moving through it, in expressing your intent in order to get to a certain objective or satisfy a certain aim. And as above, so below is the key to the mysteries of this life code. The higher you rise, the less there is of anything else getting in your way, as it is to be in the space of having the capacity to express the voice of the collective in a positively mutative way. And that could go up or down, or in between, all of which would lead to the attainment of different results, depending on which direction you went, which is also dependent on how much consciousness was involved in the influencing of the direction you took. At the shadow level, all of one's reality is covered up behind vanity, as a defensive position of the falsely constructed ego to distract others away from the remorse that arises as a result of living the life of the false self. The shadow function in man here is not only a gateway into the animal self, but also an unconscious way to divest oneself from one's awareness in the form of a falsely constructed sense of self fabricated out of one's subjective experience and determined by and built up from the defense mechanisms of the reaction patterns of childhood. It is at this stage of life where we unknowingly fabricate out of the picture-making capacity of our memory function those self-images that we will use for the rest of our lives to define who we are in the various fields of experience we engage in. So with awareness in this sense means being attentive enough to the signals coming in from the environment so that it is clear which self-image is appropriate to enact in order to satisfy the demands of the presenting circumstances. Under the influence of the shadow of vanity, one is completely at the mercy of external circumstances and conditions as to how one will present oneself. One has thoroughly convinced oneself that they are the one that is in control of themselves in relation to external events. But the truth is just the opposite, as this person is on automatic pilot when it comes to the fixated and relatively limited availability of the scripts they will use to respond to a whole generalized class of experience. The vanity comes in through this life code's ability to gain the ear of the collective and impact it through their unique expression, which further solidifies the self-image that has been plastered over their true self. Everything expressed through the shadow is geared to get maximum attention that is directed to and showered all over this vain self-image so that they feel ever so important and most certainly influential. They don't really care what actual effect all that influence will have on the world around them. They just want that false self of theirs to be given all the credit for it. So in this case of vanity, all the awareness is focused on how much attention is being given to the activities being carried out by the false self from others. It feeds on the attention of others only in order to bolster itself into a kind of inflated and grandiose self. This gives them a sense of being in a very special club of fellow elitists. Of course, if they do not get the response they had hoped for, they can easily become very malicious and backbiting towards those from whom they did not receive their highly anticipated adulation and praise. The central thread running through and coloring this shadow is self-infatuation in relation to how one expresses oneself. At the gift level, we move beyond the limitations of self-infatuation into the ability to discriminate the finer things in life, especially through the arts and culture. This life code concerns the transmission of individual emotion through the voice as a way of expressing the impact of experiences of a more refined nature upon oneself, but in such a way that others are moved by that expression. So now one's awareness extends beyond the narrow confines of self-adulation into the realm of excellence through artful modalities of expression, especially when it comes to capturing the essence of deep and intimate encounters in life. And here it is the capacity of the voice to convey the sense of the romantic, and it is this which acts as the powerful force that attracts the collective of this individual's presence. Romance conveys mystery through intimacy against the backdrop of beauty, all tinged by a sense of sacredness, and there are a host of ways to convey this, some more successful than others. It is the stuff of poetry, great art and architecture, music, drama, dance, and all the ways that exist to give form, shape, sound, movement, sequence, cadence, rhythm, etc., to what moves us deeply in our hearts and into our hearts to enact noble, kind, and compassionate acts for the benefit of sharing with others, with another and or others, transmissions of meaningful import that set the stage for a feeling of greater connectedness with all those engaged in these types of enactments. Nature herself and all her exquisite beauty serves as the fundamental ground that serves all romantic interludes as it eludes us all into the sweeping embrace of its enchanting vistas. So much of what is produced in our arts and culture that attracts us so irresistibly, touches us so deeply, and moves us in previously unimagined ways is inspired by the natural world. Truly, nature is the very presence of the finer things in life as it serves as the bridge into our own inner nature and the world of meditation, where all of our senses go through a deep process of purification and consequent upgrading and refinement. And this process serves to increase and expand the scope and range of discriminative awareness, which lends itself well in the ability to express nature's magnificent varieties of display, with ever greater precision, clarity, succinctness, potency, and all the other qualities that can deliver the true experience being conveyed to the listeners, undiluted and possibly even enhanced, as if it was nature herself that was delivering the experience directly. And this brings us to the ultimate romance that exists between the original lover, the source, and the beloved. It is the beloved who, in the desire to become one with the lover, as the source of all existence, becomes like a hollow bamboo through which the most refined expressions of consciousness possible to man find their way into the world through that beloved one's expression. The beloved's desire to unite with that source of all love is so strong that it purifies them of anything that doesn't serve that desire of union with the divine. This is the siddha of purity, to be a hollow bamboo in the expression of the love of the source of all creation. It is a purity untainted by anything save that love that gives birth to and nurtures everything in existence. And a poet that is capable of conveying this purity brings into the world the expression of the reality of a divine romance that is capable of weathering all the hardships to be encountered both within and without on the journey of awakening, realization, and enlightenment. A true beloved will do anything to attain to the presence of the lover as they slowly purify their experience of anything that is not that love that emanates unabated from the lover. And in the end, that incredible journey the beloved goes through, in the romance of the spirit on the universal stage of creation, as they attain to the lover and are embraced, they realize that the embracer and the embraced are one and always have been. The source of all love touches the place in you that is that love, and now you never forget, as the hollow bamboo playing and being played by the music of that infinite, eternal, and original composer. So welcome everybody. That's the intro into tonight's journey. Yeah, it's been an interesting last week. It's like these life codes. I'm just going through from 1 through to 64. And for anybody who doesn't know, the life codes are basically our genetic code. We have 64 genetic codons, and the Chinese have known about it for 5,000 years through what they call the I Ching. And it also, we go through all 64 codons throughout the year. We go through all 64. It takes a little over 5 days to go through each one, or somewhere around 5 days. And this last week, I've been, because I'm writing out these life codes, and that takes several hours to do and to meditate on each week to do. It's always fascinating because it kind of puts me in that mode to kind of learn about our genetic code through that particular gene or life code that I'm working on that week, and looking through the week and just seeing a lot of what I see in the protesters out there that are trying to stop the whole lockdown and this and that, and there might be some truth in it, but I know, but I also see a lot of vanity in it. It's like, how dare anybody tell me what to do? I know better than anybody what's good for me. And maybe, I don't know. I mean, in some cases it might be true, but I think in most cases it's just a reaction to anybody having any authority to tell anybody anything else, even if it is more intelligent than what that person is thinking. So I just see in that instance, and then also in the instances of just what the leaders are doing. They don't really give a snort about this COVID and that people are dying. They're just trying to get all their little agendas done, and that's just so vain that that all their focus is on just, they don't care. It's like, how can we make more money even off of this? And we don't care who dies or anything. And what they're doing to, the animals when it comes to the piles of animals that they're driving into big holes in the ground, and just because they figure they're going to get their insurance and they don't care about the animals. And So on every level, life is really, vanity is such a wasteful, egotistical thing that only cares about itself and doesn't really care about anybody else out there. And to be honest, on a smaller scale, there are times, even in myself, when maybe I'm relating with somebody or something, and I feel like they didn't quite get what I said, or they're not really listening the way I want them to, or whatever it is. There's a little bit in me, because it's in all of us, and so sometimes I'll feel a little slighted and take it personal, when probably that person has so many things going on in their life that they just couldn't quite take in everything that I had hoped they could take in that moment. So there's that vanity there in my own personal experience. So as much as I can point it out there, I also have to own that there are times in my own experience when there's a part of me that's always got this inner evaluator that's kind of like, did that person really, get me the way I wanted them to, or that kind of thing. And then slight feeling of, my feelings are hurt because I didn't quite get what I needed from that person. So in the end, it's a good one. It's a good mirror vanity to take a look at, because it's always easy to see what others do and point the finger, but it's kind of really healthy in a way to look at your own shadows and admit that you that you get slighted sometimes by and that's a whole narcissistic thing. It's like, well, why didn't you look at me the way I wanted you to, kind of thing. And so that's how I'll open up this self-infatuation. Vanity is kind of the way it manifests, but really in the end, it's self-infatuation. It's kind of this love affair we have with ourselves that isn't really sensitive or aware of or really caring about anything other than that. And that's kind of, in the end, it's kind of self-defeating, because we don't exist in the world alone. We exist in a world of other people. So we have to find ways to give and take. So anyway, that's how I'll open it up about self-infatuation and vanity.
Did you say that you wrote that whole entire life code that you just read to us?
Yes, I did.
Wow, I'm really impressed. That was incredible. Yeah. I was just trying to tell my friend to come on this because this is really good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm getting better as I go too, because I just started doing this since 11 of them ago. I just decided I'm going to write the life code every week, and they seem to be getting better as I go along. So. And I'm really enjoying it. It's fun. But thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, I wanted to say that it's very, very appropriate for where I'm at right now. I don't know if I'm quite ready to go first, if anybody else wants to go first, but I definitely have some stuff to share today, I think.
Yeah, I'll just say in the end, it's like, I don't always, I just lead it because I'm sort of the facilitator of the meeting. So I just take the initiative to lead every time, and probably at least 6 times out of 10, I probably don't feel. But what I do, the way I get around that is I say, okay, maybe tonight I got so much stuff going on in me, I'll just focus on that. It'll be easy to come out with my stuff. But some other times then I also say, I don't really want to get into me right now. I don't know where that's going to go. So I'm just going to focus on how I see it in the world. And it's okay either way. You can always go either into the collective and see how you see it out there, like I started, and then come into yourself, or you can just do something with yourself and your own vanity. Maybe you discovered some things about your own vanity that were illuminating for you and expose things. And maybe if you share it, it can help other people, get in touch with the fact that they do those kind of things too. Because as we know, once you become aware of things that aren't working for you, they tend to disappear. Whereas things that are real tend to grow. I mean, that's the neat thing about awareness. You water your experience with awareness, and the good stuff grows, and the weeds just kind of dissolve. Too bad our yards can't do that. Sucks picking weeds. But anyway, that's a whole other story. but anyway, so I'm just kind of setting a field up where you can, just, if one way doesn't work, then go into the collective. If the collective doesn't work, go into yourself. And if neither one of those work, then just get poetic about the universe and come up with something about, that maybe you see about, how it is in the picture that includes this world and other worlds, or, I don't know. You could go anywhere you want. But I guess the truth is nobody really likes to admit they're vain, right? That's kind of weird too. But we all have that narcissistic look at me. I'm number one. I want all the attention. Because we always try to convince ourselves that everything we're doing is so meaningful and it's so good for everybody. But a lot of times at the end of the day, if we look at that, we realize that a lot of what we did in that day was more for us getting attention, that we are doing that rather than the effect it has in helping others. And that's a sneaky way vanity gets in also. And anyway, I'll just keep making stuff up until somebody comes.
Okay, I'll just say one thing. Lucy, do you want to go? Because I was just going to say one thing, but I do not have to.
No, you go. That's all good.
That's so funny that he brings this up, because I was like, I'm sure I can come up with some examples that, And then I remember I was on a dog walk just before this. I said, I'm going to get on the meditation. I got to go ahead and take Boomer so that I can really be focused. And while I was walking, and I was thinking, wow, I didn't wear any sun protection today. I'm going to be getting more skin cancer. And then I was thinking to myself, wow, I've had skin cancer since before I was 30. And the only thing I thought of when I had the skin cancer was when I was getting it cut out of my arm. I was very upset because I was going to have a scar on my arm, and I was not going to be able to wear sleeveless dresses anymore. And it was just going to ruin my whole social life. And I just could not see past. I was stage 2, which isn't that bad, but still I have stage 2 melanoma, and all I'm thinking about is the scar on my right arm. And yeah, that's what I was thinking about. So yeah, that's major vanity. But at the time, this is pre-vegan, but maybe it's because I wasn't vegan at the time, because also I wasn't aware of the pain and suffering that, I think I was vegetarian at the time, but not vegan. I think there's a huge difference between vegan and vegetarian. I just do personally, because I was not aware when I was vegetarian. I'm more aware when I'm vegan. That's it.
Thanks, Sarah. Boy, isn't that the truth. I thought I did so well being vegan for like 30 years. The last 8 being vegan as a whole. I mean, just how it opens your senses and how much clearer you can think, and how many other things that, I mean, if you want to talk about vanity in a positive sense, how many good things it does for you, just it's as compared to being vegetarian. I just wanted to say that because, boy, it does, there makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that's I think there's a huge difference between, well, I think on many levels there's a big difference between vegan and plant-based as well, and something that this ties into kind of things that I wanted to talk about anyway, because some spiritual, or some people who are looked to for spiritual leadership in groups that I work with, sometimes there's quite a few of them, lots of different people that I'm working with, and sometimes I see their judgment, I guess, of vegans for being judgmental. And to me, that's like, well, if you're angry with vegans for being judgmental, isn't that being judgmental? Isn't there like some level of judgment there as well? So it kind of like, that for me this week has grated me a little bit. But there's been a whole heap of stuff. I mean, my own personal stuff has been really interesting. Just last week when I missed the last Friday's meeting, I was actually kind of going through quite an intense day, I guess, and felt like I was completely at ground zero. Like I could not see any future. I just lost all hope. All hope was gone. I just thought, this is the end of the world. We're all going to die. How many days have we got? You know, I could kind of felt like I could see a few days into the future, and then there was just nothingness. And it really made me question so much about, you know, kind of been on this shadow integration process, this trying to, I guess, work at dissolving the ego, or work at enlightening the ego and the aspects of my shadow that I can, for a little while. But now this I guess realization of my own mortality really, really, it felt like I could not, you know, as humans, we know we're all going to die at some point, but I guess the fact that it just felt like we had a couple of days, and actually now, you know, I'll get on to the more positive aspect of that, but at the time, it just really made me think, what have I been doing with my life? Has everything that I've been doing been ego-based? Has all my activism, or all my, you know, the way I've been doing things, has it all come from ego? Is it all for vanity? Have I really been in service of others, or has it been service of myself? You know, all these things came up and hit me really, really hard. So, and I have looked at that over the years quite a lot, and been very aware of my ego, and done my best with, you know, the experience and the awareness and the consciousness that I had at the time. But still, I think a lot of it has probably come from ego, and I just haven't, but there's no, you know, for me, I don't think it's right or wrong or good or bad. It's just that's been my experience, and that's what I've been doing, and done the best that I could with what I had. And now that my awareness is raising, and you know, and I don't have judgment of where I've been, or judgment of you know, different forms of activism or different things. You know, I think it's all, everything that we do has kind of all got to happen anyway, but we all have a choice, I guess, moving forward into a new phase of existence, a new way of living, or a new way of a new dimension, basically a new frequency. We all have a choice to be co-creating that new life by focusing on whatever we choose to focus on. So my focus is shifting dramatically, and I'm really excited about it. And I'm doing my best, as I said, to integrate my shadow, and to not focus on things, to focus on things that really bring me peace and joy, and raise awareness at the same time. Because I feel like, because I've just absolutely gone through the ringer with my activism, and, you know, could go into stories of details of crazy initiations and things that have been part of my journey, and I'm really grateful for. But that's just not, I've been through that already, and now I'm at a place now where I feel like that initiation by fire served that purpose. But I don't want to be living in that place constantly anymore. You know, that was last year, so I've come through a lot since then, and this year has been like a major, crazy, beautiful ascension, but that doesn't mean that it's easy either. So a lot of the shifts that I'm going through at the moment, definitely not easy, but I feel like what you said at the beginning, Dharmendra, about the higher you rise, the less obstruction there kind of is. I'm not sure of the wording that you used, but that really resonated, because I feel like there's just less and less and less, but there's still more and more and more that I don't know, and more and more that I want to know. And it's really exciting. I'm super, super, super excited for this time in existence, because we are right at the brink. Like, this is, I feel like we've come to the edge of existence, and we can either jump off the cliff, or we can jump off and fly and take off upwards, as opposed to falling into, you know, the darkness and letting that win. So yeah, I'm super excited. Thank you for letting me share that. And yeah, that's part of my shadow. There's other stuff that I could say, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Lucy. That was cool. I like the jumping off the cliff, and that's the Fool card in the tarot, right? That moment of stepping, and it catches it right in that moment. And that, where's he going to go? Is he like going to head off into space, or is he just going to fall to his death? And it's like, that's interesting. And also the other thing, the higher you go, the more you don't know, and the more there is to know. That's what's also cool about it. The less gets in your way, because there's so much to discover. So that's really another really cool part of it. So thank you for reflecting that back. And my heart goes out to you for the feeling you're bringing into the space, not so much what you're saying, but just the struggle that you've been through recently, that is kind of apparent just in the way you're not necessarily detailing it out, but just kind of sort of going about the process that you went through. And so thanks for sharing that, because I think in some way or other we can all feel that it really is kind of like what we're looking at in the world out there is just this massive destructive process is what's going on, but it's reflecting the destructiveness in humanity. That's kind of the source of most of it, and most of them are just want to be willfully ignorant of it, and so that's kind of a tough one, because and a lot of them aren't even willfully ignorant; they're just ignorant, and that's just creating so unbelievable the field of suffering on this planet of the life forms. And mostly from humanity's, willful ignorance is just insane. And when you kind of get into that place sometimes, and then you realize you're dealing with your own ego, and that maybe everything, that's a deep realization too, to realize that, to admit that, to say that maybe it has all been narcissistic, and maybe that's just where it all came from, and that's just a good thing. There's nothing to say about that except thank God you're becoming aware of it, because that to really get a handle on that, and to stand in front of it, just as you are, and face that, that's a huge one. That's not an easy place to be. So it is going to kind of blow away most of what you thought was you. That's the effect that has, It's so. Thank you for sharing. That's pretty powerful stuff. And welcome, Nancy. You popped in when Lucy was sharing. Just want to say hi. I see you there. Thank you for showing up.
Hi, sure. I'm turning into a cat. I'm sleeping most of the day and I'm up most of the night. It seems like I'm heading that way.
Oh, cool. I've had periods in my life like that when I could get away with it. It's kind of interesting when life happens that way. You didn't hear all the beginning. I'll just give you a real quick, but tonight's life code is called With Awareness. And it's going from the shadow of self-infatuation, which is all about vanity and narcissism. And then the gift is about the finer things, and kind of like how would you call it? Heightened discrimination for tastefulness, in, what's tasteful in life. And then we go into the hollow bamboo, which is just about being a vehicle for for the source of everything, and higher nature, and your higher nature, and the I guess you could say being an expression of nature itself, I guess is the best way to say that. An art, literally an art, an expression of the highest form of art of nature as yourself would be this. I just came up with that. I didn't even actually say that in the introduction, but that even makes more sense. But anyway, just so you know, that's the theme we're working on. So right now we're in infatuation, and it's just I and Lucy and Sarah have shared a bit on that so far. That's where we're at.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, welcome.
I'm going to be moving around, so I'm going to keep my picture off, but I'm definitely here.
And if you forget to mute yourself like you sometimes do, I'll mute you. Because the noise comes through. And anybody who forgets, I'll try to be aware of that and mute you if you forget. Okay, going on.
I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but I guess I have a couple of other things that I'd like to share, if that's okay, just briefly. I guess in terms of self-infatuation, I feel like it's so easy these days with social media and followers and numbers and just something that I've come up kind of against, or has been part of my world over the last couple of weeks, has been this desire, I guess, through part of the ascension process, is to be able to step into the light and share my gifts, and to be able to express myself publicly and to speak my truth, and be able to put myself out there. But I've always had this on and off, this fear, I guess, of being seen, for many reasons, my own traumas, but also I think the whole culture of social media and everything. But yeah, I shared something publicly a couple of weeks ago and had quite a strange negative reaction from somebody who just wanted to objectify and turn me into something to possess, as opposed to a being of my own, being my own person. And that, because of everything else that's been going on, I guess, in the whole animal rights movement over the last few weeks, month or whatever, that really hit me. And it really showed me how, I think I shared this a couple of weeks ago actually, but it really hit me, how that tendency, I guess, towards objectification has become such a massive thing in our human society. And so obviously that ties in with animal rights. We know that. But it's also something that I think we've, for me personally, it's really shown me where I, like the energy that I put out, the energy that I express, and not engaging too much with, having really strong boundaries, I guess, knowing my boundaries and making them clear. And I guess part of that is also, I don't know, I struggle with it because on one hand, I want to have those boundaries and respect myself, but at the same time, I don't want that to turn into like a self-infatuation thing for me, that, I don't want to be seen or feel like I'm elevating myself above anybody, because we're all one, we're all the same, we're all made of the same stuff, we're just at different parts of our journey. Yeah, I guess I'm not sure if I'm wording it super well, but I think you get what I mean. But it's just something that's definitely I've become more aware of it. And I, as you say, the more we're kind of aware of things, the things that no longer serve us kind of can disappear. I'm hoping that I'm just able to kind of rise above that issue for myself. And I'm hoping that collectively our society can do that as well. So we don't see each other as objects. We don't see animals as objects anymore.
Yeah, I think you really nailed it there. As you were speaking, it's like that's the key to vanity, and it's also the key to objectifying everything, because vanity is the objectification of ourself. We fall in love with the image we have of ourselves. That's the root of all objectification. That makes it so we can objectify everything because we think that's what we are, something that's objectifiable. So it's easy to project that now onto other people, onto animals, and then literally it's like nothing really has any true value anymore. If it's just an object, then you can treat anything any way you want, and then you get into the sickness of this world and the way it is. But the problem is, even if you're a pretty spiritual person, you can develop that in a real subtle spiritual way too. And you can objectify your way you come across as a spiritual person. And then suddenly you're going to treat other people as spiritual objects, which is really kind of weird to even think about. But when you do, then everybody's like subtly ranked in you and closer or further away, and you're the center of attention. And that gets into a real, and some of the really so-called cool and groovy spiritual people out there, even gurus, are doing that. And it's that's yikes. And I have to admit, even some people who I see that are so-called vegans are they're very non-sensitive to other people who aren't, or even other vegans if they're not in a certain way. And I know they're objectifying. They don't get it either, because to truly be a vegan is to be a bodhisattva. It's about relieving the suffering of all beings everywhere. It's about true justice, what we're really coming from as animal activists. That's what it's about. And that requires awakening. You have to awaken to yourself. And it's my contention that if you're fully awakened, which means a Buddha, not a bodhisattva who's awakening, but a full-blown Buddha, no full-blown Buddha could ever be other than vegan. I can't see how that's possible, because the very definition of Buddhahood implies peacefulness, and peacefulness can only happen if nothing you do touches any other being in a way that's harmful. So all those elements are in there, and I don't see that that's even possible. There's always going to be a little shred of objectification left until you, and so we all, none of us are perfect in that sense. We're all becoming more real every day, and by being, what I mean by being more real is not objectifying any sentient being, period. I mean, that's really the root of all of it. That's what governs all our behaviors, our value systems, and how we treat others, and what we tend to invest in and everything. And it can be so subtle. And I really feel that you were, in a way, you were kind of leading into that. But it brought out a beautiful point, that's where it all begins. You objectify yourself, and it's, oh, look at me, look, I'm the ultimate object, and then you go from there, and then everything is related to that objectification that you are. And so it's so easy at that point, because then you can easily cut your heart out, because it's just an object, and you don't have to love objects. And then if there's no subject left, there's nobody home. So it's no wonder most of the planet doesn't get neither awakening nor either one, but the two, to me, in the future, they're going to go more hand in hand. Because if you're going to talk spiritual, to walk spiritual, truly for me is the path of peace. Otherwise, how can you, the very definition of one who is a path walker, a bodhisattva, is the vow to liberate, to put your energy into. Obviously, it's not going to happen all by yourself, but is to put all your energy and focus and aim ultimately into the liberation of suffering of all sentient beings. So that's just a good thing to remember, and that's why I created this group. That's what the essence of this group is about. And yes, it's nice to come here as a vegan and take a break and get into your spiritual nature, but there is a very powerful vow here that does take all of our energy, all of our awareness, all of our love, all of our peace that we practice every day by being, living it, walking the talk of being a spiritual person. To me means that, is to own your peace and to walk it. And that just means, and I'm not trying to convince or convert anybody or turn anybody into vegan, but if you really hear what's being said and you really look at what it is to be a bodhisattva, it's at least, it makes it easier if you start that way and you're already walking the peaceful, because then your actions are already there. Now you just have to get your emotions in your mind so they're not objectifying. And not, because the minute you objectify, you kill. You're killing the life force. You're killing the life out of something. It's no longer a subject that you can feel and be touched by and be moved by and relate to. It's just an object. And with an object, it's, you can kick it and throw it and scratch it and cut it and break it. It doesn't matter. just an object. Doesn't have feelings. So that's a really good point you made. Thank you. I think that's just important to yeah, you too. Yeah, and as always, nobody ever has to go on any stage or another. So I'm going to give it another minute or so, and if nobody else wants to share on the self-infatuation, we'll move on to the finer things, the gift level, because it's totally fine. If sometimes it's not, nobody's expected to do anything here. It's just, I'm just happy that you're present and bringing your love and awareness to the space. Oh,
May I share a little something?
well, why, of course.
I think it's related, but it's just something that kind of came to me while I've been listening. And it seems like as a vegan, we buck the status quo, you know, and for people to remain, you know, really true to being what vegan means, you have to be willing to go against the status quo. It's not our choice to go vegan wasn't based on like, what can I do now that's going to be completely against everything and everybody around? What can I do now, you know? But it was more like just seeking the truth and wanting to live, you know, as a loving and kind person and not wanting to be a part of all that. And then I feel like it seemed to me to be a form of objectification, but then it ties into what the person was saying just before me, how as a movement, then people just adapt to new status quos, like they trade one status quo in for another. And I see that a lot in the different forms of activism people do, where they feel like, well, my way is the best way, and you know, if you don't do this, you know, kind of activism, then you know, there's something wrong with you. And I think that's a big division between people who are plant-based and going vegan mostly for health or for other reasons, and then people who actually go vegan for being vegan, you know, with the ethical foundation. And for me, I embrace like all of it, you know, and I see that really causes a lot of problems among this, all the infighting. We saw it with the Apostle Burger Wars, and now we see it again with conspiracy theorists versus non-conspiracy theorists, you know. And it seems that as a whole, as a movement, it just keeps getting more and more divided, you know. Despite the fact that in terms of food, you know, there's been, you know, massive like movement forward, like plant-based food is like the future of food. And even in the food industry, it's like that. And somehow it's like a miracle. But I see that happening around me a lot. I see that, you know, in the people that I know in my area that are vegan or plant-based or whatever. And like, have we traded one status quo for another? And it's become a way of, I guess, objectifying, you know, in a sense, and people thinking like my way is the best way, you know. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, there's some good insight into what you're saying there, and that's kind of a little bit, I think, is an important point, because a couple of things. One is that, and that's what a lot this meeting is geared for, is yes, vegan, but also how about waking up too? How about being aware too? Because like you say, everybody on the planet could be vegan, but then we could just be a bunch of asshole vegans, because nobody's aware of anything and nobody's aware of how they're treating each other. And then it's just like you say, a status quo. It's just another symbol. It's just another narcissistic way of identifying ourselves. Look at me. I don't harm anything. But yet the way we talk to each other, the way we treat each other, the way we divide each other, the way we compare each other is very violent. So you haven't really accomplished anything because you're still killing people in your energy or in your thoughts.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that's a brilliant point. I won't go into it any more than that. I think you kind of made that pretty clear. I just wanted to highlight that because that's another thing to be aware of in all of this. All right, again, because somebody did go, but I'll give it one more minute for anybody else who might feel like sharing on the self-infatuation, narcissistic, whatever. And if not, then I'll start into the gift. But I'll give it one more minute of either silence or somebody can share something if they feel like it. Okay, I'm just gonna shift into the gift, the finer things. The finer things is, it's interesting. We kind of already been getting into it a little bit, starting to discriminate the coarse from the fine, and that kind of thing. With the different ways you could express your veganism, that some of which are almost worse than people who aren't vegan. Because if two-thirds of you is violent and 1/3 of you is vegan, then you're really, and another person may not be vegan, but the other 2/3 of them is beautiful and spiritual. you do the math anyway. So there's just, it's all about awareness. It comes back to awareness and really learning to discriminate. What is really lightening it up and what's causing more suffering. Because it's not just about what you do, it's also about how you come across with your energy, and it's also about how you use your mind to convince people of the way you see the world and to share thoughts with other people and that kind of thing, and express your own views. But to me, the finer things, especially in this context where we're talking about tonight, I just feel a bit more I want to express this particular with awareness really lends itself well to a vegan platform tonight. And when I see the finer things, what I think of, it's just so obvious that when what's on your plate is beautiful green, vegetables and those kind of things, that's to me already the finer things. When there's nothing on your plate that was alive and breathed and could feel like you feel, and had children or parents that they felt about the same way we feel about our parents or our children, and then they just got all of that taken away from them without any respect for them whatsoever. It just seems to me that the finer thing starts with what's on your plate, and it's just, again, I don't care. I don't want to convert people to veganism. That's your business. I don't care what you do with it. But it's just, it's if you bring awareness to this and you really look at it, eating is one of the biggest things we do in life. I mean, we have to do it all the time. It's not like a choice, like going and doing a sport, which you can choose to do or not, or go to school and learn something, you can choose to do it or not, or go on vacation somewhere, you can choose to do it or not. But eating, you don't have a choice, you have to eat. And so to me, that discrimination that discriminates the finer from the coarser, it so begins on the plate, because that's the thing we do more than anything else that we do, other than maybe sleep and go to the bathroom. I mean, those things we have to do in order to be human. So it seems to me it's so much more aesthetic, it's so much more tasteful, it's so much more artistic, it's so much more beautiful when you can actually start to everything you invest in is there's nothing in it but creative energy. There's nothing destructive in it. Nothing. Well, you can't say totally not destructive, but what I mean by that is it's not causing any harm to a being that can feel what it's like to be harmed, as opposed to a plant which has no brain. So people with this argument about plants and they feel, yes, they feel, but they have no brain, so they cannot reflect on that. They do not know that they are in pain, because it takes a brain to do that. Plants don't have a brain. That starts with insects and goes up from there. When it comes to a plant, yes, they can measure it, they can see it has all these different things, but that's it. It's just it's like it's almost like a living electrical cord. It doesn't know that it's feeling that. It doesn't. When a plant expresses these waves that seem similar to the waves expressed by a human or an animal that they record when it's in pain, yes, it may express that. It may be a similar vibration, but there's no brain there for the plant to go, oh, I'm in pain. There's no self there to get hurt by it. So when people say the plant, oh, the plant has feelings, yeah, it does. So what? It's not getting hurt by you eating it. It's very different than when you take the life of an animal. It knows you're doing it. It feels the pain. So to me, the finer things, that's a discrimination there, where you start to shift into things that are more about creating beauty and peaceful, all the qualities that create a life that's just so much more pleasing to look at. I mean, just the thought of walking into a slaughterhouse, I mean, that and the thought of there being no more slaughterhouses, so much more beautiful world it would be without that. Or fields of war. I mean, you could take it into human, I mean, without any of that. And so that to me is the step into the gift here, is to start to discriminate what is and what isn't. What truly supports a finer experience of life, a more refined experience of life. Well, you have to remove the suffering. You have to remove the things that cause suffering, that cause hurt, that cause those kind of things. And then you have to develop a whole new vocabulary at that point too, because then all that stuff has been neutralized. So now you create a whole new world with just, how can we create here? What can we make out of our world now? How can we grow together? And so then all of a sudden, when that self-infatuation turns into, I know infatuation isn't the right word, but infatuation with all of life, it becomes a very positive thing. It becomes very different, because then you're just absorbed in the everything, sharing with everything else, and enhancing and supporting and uplifting everything else. So that's kind of how I see the shift, when you start to finally wake up a little bit and discriminate the acts that are based on self-infatuation, and it shifts into the finer things of life. And what does that really mean? And I just say it starts on your plate. I can't see how else could you have more impact in your life in something you have to do all the time? There's no choice. You have to eat. So what other place could you bring more impact? So.
I'm not sure. I guess that's probably relates to the gift space, but I kind of just have a question as well. With this whole shift into higher frequency and the choice that we have to co-create a better world, what do you see, and this is for everybody as well, how does everyone see the focus on, what we focus on is what we create? So by focusing on the animals and their suffering, that I feel really needs to be addressed. People need to know what's going on. They need to be able to make informed choices. They need to be able to make informed opinions and decide what happens, what they contribute to. But, you know, focusing so much on the darkness of what goes on in slaughterhouses and what goes on in, I mean, all sorts of farms and things as well. That's where most of my activism has been. And I still feel like it is obviously really important to be speaking up for the animals. And just have this, I don't know, what do you think of how much focus and attention goes on that darkness, and how much, I guess it's like a proportional kind of thing, isn't it?
The proportion is as much as it takes to wake the person up to see it. To dwell on it after that, unless you're a person whose mission it is to expose the darkness, that's different. But then even in doing that, you've somehow got to be able to still grow spiritually too. So if you can expose darkness and still grow spiritually and become a more beautiful person along the way, and not let all that darkness, make you subtly, be a butcher on an emotional or a mental level, if you know what I mean, while you're not doing that on a physical level, that's the trick. But otherwise, that just takes up a certain part. It's really for people in the beginning to break them out of the habit, to break them out of the habit of doing it. After that, then you can shift into how to start getting really good vegan food, how to cook really well, and move on into other things. I mean, you would hope in an ideal world that all this, we get past all that, and that's history, and then we can just enjoy life and get into the finer things. You know what I mean? Which is the next step with art and culture. Then we could focus all our energy on truly being creative. So, I mean, that's my hit on it. It's like I say, if you're somebody who's here to expose the darkness, then you got to make sure you keep growing too, or otherwise, then you're just a masochist, I guess, because who would want to keep doing that if they couldn't keep, if they weren't built for that and they couldn't handle that. I certainly couldn't. I mean, for me, I can go out and do my anti-activist stuff here and there and whatever. But I mean, really, for me, I like doing more of this. And I also know that this is obviously not all of it either. But I think this stage here of the path at some point needs to join into your veganism, or your veganism's only going to go so far. So I don't know if that's answering everything you asked, but that's just my hit about it. Uh-oh. I think her internet went out.
May I say something?
You can always say something, Nancy. Just got to unmute and go.
Sweet. Well, I don't want to just barge in, I could do that easily. I when I first went vegan almost 6 years ago now, it was 6 years ago in June that I saw undercover videos of animal agriculture, and I was horrified. And I stopped everything except honey and eggs, and then I learned about those industries, and then obviously ditched those too. And it was about 2 months after that I had an epiphany. I may have mentioned it here. Remember the moment I was standing in my apartment and went, oh, it's unethical to turn sentient beings into commodities. That's the problem. The treatment is the result of that problem. But that's really the core, issue. And then I learned a lot about the health and the environment. And for me, it became about all that, And what I'm seeing is that in terms of food, unless there's plant-based food that's proliferating as much as the animal foods, and we still have a long ways to go for that, the message of animal liberation or the ethics is not going to get people to go vegan quickly enough. It's not going to get people to stop eating them quickly enough, because of the ubiquitousness of, and the cultural ties and the social ties and all of that. Because the majority, mainstream majority, is not going to, stop eating animals for ethical reasons alone. My observation is that they just won't, because they're too removed from it. And, showing the horrors is really important. And I still do, share those. And I think obviously it's what worked for me. But my concern is, how can we get people to, how can we, not like you get them, but how can we, be an advocate in a way that actually helps people to stop eating them? So I like working it from both ends, from promoting plant-based foods and the joy and the good positive impacts of plant-based, and also helping people to understand those tenets of living vegan, where, about like things like speciesism, like making ourselves these superior beings, and then like I said before, vegans sometimes will substitute one status quo for another, and then vegans start thinking that they're the enlightened ones. And people who aren't vegan, they're horrible and they hate them and they make themselves miserable, And that's why I feel like this work too is so important, because it's getting the core issue of speciesism, are like, we're not the center, or, we're actually not, going vegan doesn't automatically make you enlightened, and that's a slippery slope to embrace, because then you start judging everybody and hating everybody who isn't. And then right there, you're in that, space of darkness and, stepping out of that vegan consciousness that that we're trying to uncover here. So, and I was also thinking about plants have feelings too, who knows? And one of the things that I talk to people about who kind of say that is that when you eat a plant, you don't necessarily kill it. We don't eat the parts of the plant that kill it. We eat parts of the plants that would naturally die and wither away. They're seasonal. When you take some lettuce off of a lettuce plant, you actually don't kill the plant. It might even come back stronger and bigger. And the parts that we eat would wither and die. Whereas when you kill an animal, that's, they have a lifespan of a number of years. And you're definitely killing an animal when you take a body part away from the animal, and that the process of raising animals for food, you're causing exponentially more suffering, if you think so, of plants, because you have to kill so many more plants to feed animals, and then eat plants. I mean, you're killing exponentially more. So I tell people you're causing exponentially more suffering, because you're killing all these plants and then you're killing all these animals, and the environmental destruction is killing more forms of life. And so if if the suffering of others that's done on your behalf, if that matters to you, then the only way to reduce that suffering to a minimal is to stop eating animals. And usually people are like, well, I was only joking.
Hey, Nancy.
Yeah.
We kind of went off the question that Lucy asked, because she was asking a question, remember, about how long do we stay in the focus? Yeah. And Sarah's got her hand up, so I want to see what she has to say before we get back to, because we're actually in the middle of Lucy's thing right now. Go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry.
Can you say what you just said to Nancy so that I can make sure that I'm giving the right comment?
Yeah, well, Lucy had said, she was mentioning that, I guess I'm going to make some assumptions here, and Lucy will correct me if I'm wrong, but that she's been into kind of the deep end of animal activism, and we all know what that means. And that she's just saying is like, well, how much should that be a part of the overall, right? Lucy, is that it? How much should that be a part of the overall aspect of our activism, right? Isn't that kind of how you phrased the question? And you were kind of interested in how, tell me if I'm wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's how much do we now focus on, I don't know, this whole thing around what we focus on, we create.
Right.
But I don't know how true that is, because we need to focus on things that need to have light shed upon it, you know, like we focus on our shadow to integrate our shadow. So we got to move through that. And I guess it's that whole process of like, okay, we focus on the shadow, but we give people the alternative, and we show them the light and the higher self side of it. Like, this is what maybe we have been contributing to. This is what you can do to change if you're called to change your lifestyle. But yeah, I guess it's that whole thing of like, what we focus on, we create. And like now wanting to focus on the light and creating light and just focusing on love. But, you know, the animals need to have their voices shared as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a two-sided thing. And I hate these sayings, what we focus on, we create, because you know, what's missing from that is us. Because what we focus on, we create, but also who we are isn't affected by anything. Not even what we focus on, because what we focus on isn't us. So it's only half of a statement. And when people try to make those as a blanket statement of everything, I'm not saying anything about what you said, Lucy, but that's what people do, especially in spiritual. They just say one half of a thing that's everything. Yeah, what we focus on is what we create, but there's also us in that. And we can also it's totally in our center and not be any of that, and just do it because we're so evolved that we just want to give, but that's pretty rare. So there's also that side of it too. You know, so that's why I was saying earlier about people who can get into the down and dirty side of the deep end of the activism, but grow from it and bring more and more light into it. Because the more light we're going to bring into that, the quicker it's going to end. That's the hard work. That's the reality. That's the truth.
Well, I was taking the other approach to it on recently. I was outside of a slaughterhouse at Farmer John's, and I was actually, since the trucks weren't there, it was daytime, I saw all the workers between their shifts. And I tried to interview some of them, and they didn't want to talk to me because most of them don't speak English and most of them don't have legal citizenship. And I think it's time to start working on workers' rights and get them the F out of there, because they don't want to be there. But those are the only jobs that they can get. And I realized that the other day, because I'm definitely not for the truckers. I have no love for the truckers, no matter what anyone says. Oh, you got to have love for the truckers. No, I have no love for the truckers. They know what they're doing. They're driving those pigs to their deaths. They know. So the workers, we have to help them, because they're having, finally on Jane Unchained in the chat, she watches Rachel Maddow every night, and she's an MSNBC person. So every night on one of their shows or whatever, they've been having clips of the slaughterhouses and all the outbreaks and stuff. Of course there's outbreaks there. Duh. It's like, but we need to focus, even though I don't want to focus on the workers like 100%. I'm just saying, like, that's what people care about. They care about the workers. They don't care about the animals, because they don't have the emotional intelligence right now to care about the animals. All they're thinking about is that because there's this one town in Nebraska where the whole town is employed by the slaughterhouse. It's the whole town. So that's really troubling to me. So I think we should start focusing on the workers and get them out of there. But they don't feel like they're just like the backstretch workers at the racetrack. They're there. They're illegal. They live at the barracks. They don't have a place to live if racehorsing is done. If we cancel it, you know, that's their lives, their families. So, but I really don't care, because they're abusing horses no matter what they say. It's the same thing with these animals. These people are killing animals in there, and they probably don't want to do it, but that's the only job they can get. And we just have to educate them on what's going on and get them out of there. I think that's going to be a huge reason why the slaughterhouses are going to close, because we know how bad it is, and we know how environmentally destructive it is, like what Nancy just said. But I mean, the fact that people think that plants have feelings, I understand that, but like Dharmendra said, they don't have brains. So we have to, most people don't even understand that they cannot conceptualize many things. We got to remember that we are like messengers sent from Planet Vegan to try to save the world, basically. And most people, unless it affects them directly, or they get cancer, or they get something, and they just get some kind of doctor to tell them to change their diet, they're just not going to change. People do not like change. Look at this pandemic. Look at this pandemic. Look at this whole thing. People don't even want to wear masks. Okay. You can't even get people to wear masks. So how are you going to get people to stop eating animals? I mean, we need to get to the workers and try to liberate them too. I think that's what I wanted to say on that part, because I can go to a slaughterhouse every day and do a speak out, but these workers need a job.
Yeah, so that's a really good question, Lucy, because it opens up the entire spectrum of veganism, I mean, and activism and all of it. And everything everybody's saying is totally right on, and is a part of that. And it's like, how, for me, it's like, how can you see, again, that's a real subtle mechanism of the ego to come in and say how much, rather, I mean, what would be realistic is, if you were the kind of person that did it, is just to make charts of what actually is happening and how much is being put in wherever. And then you can start to look at how effective it is. And is it really moving things? And then if you see, if we move a little bit more here, a little bit more there, but that will require a very organized movement that we don't have yet. Because as we've been discussing tonight, there's a lot of division in the veganism, because there's a lot of fucking idiots that are vegan. Who, like I've said already tonight, are 2/3 violent and 1/3 vegan in their actions, but their thoughts and the way they feel and connect with people is very violent. It's not cool, because they think they're just fucking better than everybody, and they're just infatuated with their own vegan look at me. That's a very immature vegan. That's why I keep going over and over again, wake up, motherfuckers, because, and I wouldn't say it like that, that's not appropriate, but in the end, when you've been hit with enough suffering, that's the only choice you got left, because you're like, either I'm out of here or I got to wake up. I either got to know what's going on, or this sucks and I'm out of here. That was me at 19, and I had a car accident, and I thought I was out of here, and I was happy about it. I was like, good, I'm fucking out of this fucking place of suffering. I hate this place. Because I already saw it from 14 on. I saw the world was full of it. I was given a book called The World is Full of It, which is what the advertising agencies do, and how they keep us in hypnosis all the time, and how they totally manipulate everything. Corporations, that was back in 1974 when I was reading that book. And it just, and I never felt good growing up. It's like, this place sucks. Why is everybody so unhappy? Why can't we just get along? I mean, Jesus, So that's why that really was a good motivation for me. I had no choice. I got to wake up, because, even a car accident, leaving my body, I came back. So I guess I'm supposed to be here. So I better deal with this, But still, there are days like you just had recently, and we all do, and everybody's expressed it to me here at one time or another, that you just don't, this is just so overwhelming, and it's just so much to carry, and it's just like, God, it would just be so much easier to get out of here, and it would be, but in the end, something is missing, and that's what you could have given that could have been, because every little bit we can give of the good is worth zillions more than all the bad that we're trying to overturn. One good act is worth countless bad acts. So you kind of need to change. We need to change the way we see things, that we're here, we're doing good. That's valuable. That's the only value there is, because anything that isn't that good or isn't that way it's actually negative. It's like negative existence. It takes away. Every good action gives something. So if we're really about giving and doing that, then yes, no matter how hard it gets, we got to stay in there as long as nature wants us to be here. It's nature's call when to take us out, because it was nature's call to bring us in. We didn't create ourselves, the form we're in, that is. So we really, in the end, have no right to any more than, if we're true vegans, we certainly don't want to take our own life. that would be that'd be the ultimate slap to veganism, that you couldn't even care about yourself. That doesn't even make any sense to me. So no matter how hard it gets, we just got to go, yeah, okay, I feel, and that's where you just love that part of yourself. That's your shadow that says, and it's okay to feel that way too. It's okay to feel that just this really sucks and I don't want to be here anymore kind of thing. I've been through it. I went through 2 decades of it when I was younger, before I went through the black hole inside myself and just finally faced it. Sooner or later you're going to have to face it. Whatever it is that is that pulls you into that, sooner or later you have to face it full on. And it's not something you can do. One day you're just going to do it because there's nothing else you can do. Just like one day you had to say, I got to wake up. One day I had to go vegan. Those things, when they happen, you can't plan them. They happen when they happen, when you're ready for it. But anyway, Sarah's got her hand up, so I'd like to hear what she has to say.
That was really good, Dharmendra. Wow. You almost made me forget I think I almost forget what I'm about to say. Dang it. Well, I lost my train of thought. So it must have not been so important.
Or you'll remember.
What were you just talking about?
Or you'll remember it in a few minutes. Oh no, I'm good. I can go.
What were you just talking about though? And then it triggered me to say something.
Well, probably the fact that if you feel like taking your own life, that's the biggest slap on veganism you could ever give.
My question is to everybody here. Do you think that we only have until 2026 to get our act together and basically try to fix everybody and get them to see the light? Because we already know. What do you think about that? Because I tell people that and they don't believe me, and I'm like, I almost want it to be true. Because then for me, I would not have, what, if we could be done in 2026 or have a vegan world, either way, then I would have a huge, and this goes back to the vanity, I will have a huge, I just feel like amazing. I will not feel stressed. I could probably sleep at night and wake up every day just feeling so happy, knowing that we're either going to be done in 2026 or, through fault of our own, or we have a vegan world, and then that's going to be great. I'd like to hear from everybody.
Well, I never have a problem responding. I'll just say that from what I've learned, nature's already working on phasing us out anyway, because we pretty much haven't lived life from love, most humans, and so we kind of missed the lesson. And as far as I know, in 2027, a new species is going to be birthed through us, but it's going to be vegan from the get-go. And it's going to have capacities that when they come together in groups of 3 to 5 and then bigger groups, they're going to be able to have capacities that we could only dream of. And the focus of evolution is going to be on those beings. So humans are going to become like, second. And it's just because everything always grows and moves on, and it looks like, and unless there's an incredible awakening and we can jump into that as humanity, because you got to get to the frequency. Everything's evolving. It's always growing. And humanity's not. They're not keeping up. They're not keeping the pace with everything else that's going to evolve. And it just is. I mean, how did we get to human from a snail? Something evolved. So it's not like we're the end all be all. There's going to be more. It's obvious. Whatever created this existence is obviously infinitely more than we are. So get a clue. I mean, so the point is something else is coming. And so by 2026, if we haven't got it together, so we can join that something, and some of us will, because we know it's coming and we're awake, and we're just going to get more awake with the new species that are coming. But the rest of the people that aren't, so nature's going to get very, I mean, she's getting very, very emphatic here, as I think we all know with COVID. That's just the beginning. And that's how I see it. Not saying it's right or wrong, but that's just that's the transmissions I've received that I tend to think are pretty accurate. And I like that question, Sarah, because it kind of gets us into the siddha too, of the creative ability of the source to evolve all of us as creations of life, you know. So that's really kind of nice how you segued into that question, because it really it opens it up to where we're going anyway. And so thank
I think it's going to take another pandemic or two to really turn things around. And the idea of giving slaughterhouses workers other jobs is fantastic. But like you were saying, that's maybe my interpretation is like that's more an institutional change. And do we have the people power and the jobs to give them? I know PETA had a program where they were offering to give them other jobs, I think working with flowers. But unfortunately, there's no shortage of desperate immigrants needing work. So they'll just bring more people in, or more forms of human trafficking. It's really sad, you know. But the interesting thing, I've noticed that kids today, compared to when, let's say, I was growing up, they are so much more aware. There's a whole different, it's so different. I've seen it. They're so further along, you know, in their awareness. And you really see, especially in the vegan kids, the things that they say, you know. So I feel very certain that a vegan world is coming. It's like this consciousness, that wave that's coming through us, you know, or around. And I feel like it hit me and I just went with it. I could have gone against it the other way, but I think, you know, seeing the horrors really shocked me into changing. But my experience of talking to hundreds and hundreds of people, and my observations, like you were saying, people don't really want to change. And because they're so removed from that, they see it as somebody else doing that, not them. They're innocent bystanders. I'm just eating, and it's, you know, the industry's fault, not mine. They don't realize, no, actually, the whole reason the industry exists is because of necessity and because we're paying for it. So, yeah, so that's why in terms of vegan advocacy, I feel like all of it's needed. You know, the being a voice of the suffering of animals, introducing really good vegan food. And I see it happen time and time again. I might have shared this last week. I had a table at a high profile food event for the Maryland State Restaurant Association, and I was serving Beyond Meat meatloaf, and people loved it. And people were excited that they could get meat from plants. They were thrilled. It was really quite a thing to see, whereas I did it a couple years ago with Beyond Meat burgers, and people liked it, but they were kind of confused about it. And I was like, what, meat from plant, you know? And now only 2 years later, everybody knows about the Beyond Meat burgers. Everybody knows, and they're booming in sales. So the seeds are planted, and it's coming and it's growing. And I think it's really hard though there's always like a constant heartbreak, I know that I have, you know. So I definitely think it's coming. How and when, I don't know, but it'll probably take another pandemic or two, because the system has to just creation, just, you know, what are the three gods of Hinduism? The creation, maintenance, and destruction, you know. And
Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva.
Right. And so things are going to have to be destroyed, you know, before the new rebirth happens. It's unfortunately, it seems like that's inevitable, you know, too. Thank you.
Yeah. Sarah, I know your hand's up. I want to give Evan a chance to respond to this really cool question you put out. Evan,
My hand's not up. It's just I didn't lower it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I forgot to lower it. It's lowered now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Evan, are you out there? Are you listening? I'd like to hear your response to what you think about the future, if you're there. If you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm feeling a little bit low energy today, so I've been mostly listening and
okay.
and enjoying your guys' interpretations. And I'm afraid I don't really have anything to offer on this one.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure I gave you a chance in case we were all going. I know you're usually pretty good about jumping in when you feel like it. Well, thank you for letting us know. And you're, of course, you can. I'm just happy you're here. So cool.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. I appreciate that.
Cool. Nice. Boy, I think Lucy's got a bad internet connection tonight because she seems to be zipping in and out. I would like to hear what she has to say on that note too. Because I just like the way it ties in with the hollow bamboo about being, which I guess I'll just jump into because I think we've kind of covered the gift and talked about some neat stuff about ways to help like when it comes to the finer things in the gift of with awareness, especially like helping the workers lift them up out of that horrible place they have to be in the slaughterhouses and give them a different platform of a finer kind of, obviously a finer life. I think that's a real kind of way of looking at a practical solution in which you can take the whole self-infatuation and turn it into really caring for others and creating a finer lifestyle for the beings around you. That's really cool. But now we're looking at evolution and how where things are going. And I don't even care if we get into a super holy space tonight. I'm really fascinated by the whole thing of how we're all kind of just vehicles with a message right now that has to do with bringing the action of peace into the world, which I can't think of anything more profound for this planet right now than bringing into our actions peacefulness. And hopefully our heart's behind it and our mind is clear about it, and we can really align and integrate all the different parts of ourselves, so we're like one and centered and integrated in a unit or a unity that's about peace. Because then to me, it's like we really are like the hollow bamboo, which is the siddha of this life code, that allows the only what the source, puts out into existence, which is that power, creative power. I mean, there's no greater power to me than peace. Because with peace, you truly are a creative force. Because everything you touch is going to be, at the worst, it's neutral, and otherwise, there's always going to be, you'll always leave everything you touch a little better than it was before you touched it. And so to me, in this world, in the most down-to-earth practical sense, that's to me the highest expression of hollow bamboo. And by hollow bamboo, I mean you're an expression in human form on probably the smallest scale you can get before it starts to kind of fragment of what the source is. We humans can be a source of creative power, but the only way that really happens is that if we're truly a peaceful being. And peaceful in the sense of starting on your plate and then going from there. So that's kind of a way to open up this idea of the future and how I think we're really all being called to evolve now, because I really do think, and I think that all these events, the flus and the different things are coming are a chance for the people are really being thrown to themselves, they have to face themselves now. They're either going to find a kind of meditativeness, and some people are, they're gonna discover it that way, maybe, and some people, even by getting the sickness, may discover a certain meditativeness by coming really close to death, and that really changes their whole relationship to life. And now they have a whole different approach that maybe values life, that maybe comes much more from a place of respecting life and being sensitive to that and changing their behavior accordingly. So, and I think all of that is just nature's way, and I think we are probably going to have more pandemics too. I'm in agreement with that. I don't see how else it's going to work, and I think we might even have things we don't even know yet that might make this pandemic look like a picnic. That's kind of what I think. because humanity is just not even close to getting it yet. As we've seen, there's a lot of people not wearing masks and just want to get back to work and don't really value life that much. It's just all about what they can get out of it, and all of that is not really trusting the source that we come from and the source that we can be, and really become a vehicle for the creative power, which I keep mentioning because it's really connected with channeling the expression of what it is to truly be human. Because to really be human is to express, to be a creator, like the creator, like that which created everything. That's what it is. It's to do the same thing on our scale. Is what it is. Truly, what this sit is about is to be a hollow bamboo, to let the creative force come through you. And I think most people don't even realize that we're in touch with that. And I think the biggest reason why is because we're so destructive, and we eat destruction, we eat death, we eat suffering, we eat pain, we eat hurt and hatred and violence and all the things that we put in our bodies. And I think that literally so screws up our frequency I think that's why we can't be a creative source and a creative power. And I think we are naturally that. We could actually be that, because there's evidence everywhere in the world of great works of art and social institutions that promote a lot of really good things. So obviously it's there, but it's so distorted by all the violence. And I think sometimes there's a whole other aspect of veganism that's so beautiful, that is this aspect that we're getting back in touch with that creativity in us. And I think the creativity is also what created meditation in the first place. And it's that we had so much suffering at one time in our human history that we had to find a silence, a place where there wasn't that suffering. And that was the beginning of meditation. And I think that came from probably somebody taking a break from eating animals and just and not being, and being maybe the first vegan. Maybe it was from the first vegan, who knows? It kind of almost makes sense, because I can't see how else you could discover that creative power that it is to be a human being, and like a universe on the most miniature scale you can get it. If you're still distorting your aura with violence through what you eat, and that's the source of all war and everything. I mean, it codes your chemistry to violence, so it's so easy to see violence in the world and create violence. And when you become somebody with a lot of power who's got a really distorted aura, then you're going to do that on a big scale. And that's where we have the wars and all of it. So I don't know. I just see that's, to me, the hollow bamboo is that. It's truly becoming just so clean inside yourself, so pure inside yourself, that there's nothing left of violence. So just what's left is creative energy. Or just being silent if there's nothing to do in a moment, but that there is no avoidance of who you are, because you're just a creative, loving source that shares that with everybody. Yeah, so if anybody else has anything like to share about what a hollow bamboo, what being a vehicle for the creative power is, when there's no more, destructive energy distorting your aura, what it might be like ultimately when you just become so pure with that, the peacefulness, that it penetrates all the layers of you, not just your actions, but everything. What would that be like? That's, I guess, maybe because we're getting down to the last 10 or 15 minutes anyway, Sarah, so no worries. Because it's basically you and Nancy, that if you feel like sharing something about, how do you see that? How do you see yourself ultimately when you really are in that purity of peacefulness, and maybe touching that space and just sharing it a little bit, how you see it, or even if you can just be it too, just for a moment. It's always fun to be the Siddha and just be that peacefulness that touches everybody deep in their being, and
Well, my peacefulness is when and it probably serves me personally, but my peacefulness is when I know that animals, no matter what species they are safe, happy, and free, and that they're not suffering, whether that be beagles that I've rescued and brought into my home, or animals that I may or may have not rescued and whatever. But yeah, that's when I feel the happiest, is when I know that animals are going to, I really feel like I won't even be happy unless or until we have total animal liberation. I feel like because to me, happiness means happiness for everybody, not just for me, but for all beings. And that's the ultimate feeling for me of peace, is when everybody's just, because that means you're not hurting. You're no longer hurting. I mean, I know that we can hurt if we're vegans, but it's going to wipe out about 99% of the, evil. I feel like there is a way to have world peace. We already know that. But the evil powers that be, unfortunately, we really are in this kind of comic book, or whatever you want to call it, like Batman, Robin, or kind of good guy, bad guy. We are in that world where we have like Dr. Evil being the slaughterhouses and all the big pharma and everything. It's just all, I think a lot of people are starting to become aware that it's all connected. It's just all connected. It's so obvious that even me, myself, and I that don't know anything about engineering or anything, I can see these corporate giants, and this Jeff Bezos made $75 billion the first quarter of the year. That's before even people started going crazy and ordering stuff. That is just insane. Why? That's just insane. There's no way we're going to have world peace with just a couple people moving chess pieces around. It's just not going to happen.
Well,
so yeah, until we have liberation, I'm not going to be feeling happy all the way.
Right, and I agree with you, because until we can all get it, and that's the ultimate collective satisfaction. But there must be a place in you that drives your creativity and your activism, that you really must have a very deep sense of appreciation for what peacefulness is like, as you sit in your room there in a peaceful space. But I think it's more than that. It's not just that, because that's obvious. But something in you is driving you that you have a deep, my sense is that you have a really deep sense of what peacefulness is for you, and how beautiful that could be for others, because something in you is empowering you to act and be a creative source and a creative energy. I mean, you're a really good example of that. And you're a really good example of somebody who can keep their light turned on even in the really dark places, and it doesn't mean to go in and like be all spiritual when you're in a dark place. It means to go into a dark place and mirror how dark it is, and be honest about it, and bring your light in that way, and show people like a flashlight in a dark room. Look, this is what's happening. And that takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of creative drive and power to be able to do that. So I hear what you're saying, but I also want to bring it back to you that there's something in you you're in touch with, the siddha of this, the hollow bamboo. There's something coming through you that's the source, something of the source is coming through you that's driving you as in one direction so powerfully. That's an indication of a connection to source, because there's all your energy is focusing single pointedly on what you just were talking about. And I truly see that in your actions, but I also see it in the way you expressed your heart when you were going through that really, that wet market, that you're just honest. I mean, that's part of it. That's real. And so to me, real is what it's about. When people say spiritual, what I hear is either real or not real. So real is, I respect, not just somebody who can talk spiritual or, say fancy things, but somebody who can expose the truth. That's the point. That's what real is exposing the truth. So I don't know. I just put that out to you. You must really be in touch with something that you really have a deep appreciation for what peacefulness is like. And otherwise, why would you want everybody else to have it? You know what I mean? Especially animals who aren't getting it. And the workers in there who don't have any other choice. That kind of stuff. It's pretty harsh. Anybody else want to share anything about the... Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'll share kind of my thoughts. So just like dipping back to the self-cherishing attitude a little bit, because I feel when I'm most confused or feeling out of connection with source is when I'm engaged in like this a self-cherishing attitude, and when I become aware of this and like all whatever discontent I'm experiencing, and yeah, I don't know, there's something about it where it's like even in those moments of where my ego or whatever it is searching for some displeasure or some outside reason for my discomfort, when I become aware of that, I feel distinctly separate from myself, and then I have this experience of, oh, the universe is doing this with me right now. Like even this this illusion of my ego is something the universe is doing. Not even my ego can fully take credit for that, and that's kind of liberating. But yeah, I would say this feeling of like hollowness, where I feel like I'm not even really I'm not doing anything for me. I'm solely just carrying out the will of the universe. I get that the most when I do live music, because when I'm performing for myself, uh, it's very like personal, and I'm kind of trying to tune into the like the romantic part of it a lot, but I'm really trying to like kindle the romance with whatever it is, like this idea of the lovers. I'm trying to be like, oh, what's this universal lover involved in here now? But then the performance element of it, it's not really for me then at that point. It's like I'm trying to share it with other people, and so yeah, I really want to explore this this whole life code more in my own life, because it definitely resonates with me, and I want to see this in more areas of my life where I'm just kind of carrying out the will of the universe for the benefit of everyone in whatever situation presents itself. That's what I've got for me.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's kind of hitting the nail on the head about what it is to be a hollow bamboo. Yeah, that's the whole point. And the beauty of it is the universe is so loving that once you can give that total attunement, then the universe lets you do that as you, which is really the paradox and the beauty at the same time, that when you're totally surrendered and totally, let go of your own way of doing things, that's when the universe lifts you up and says, okay, just you are a creation, so create yourself as you go, basically. And so it's really a beautiful thing when that happens like that. Thank you for sharing that, Evan. That touched me. That was cool. That brought some joy into my heart, because it always brings joy to my heart when somebody really gets real and says something that is real, like that. Cool. Well, we're just about at the if there's anybody, Nancy, I'll ask you since I haven't heard anything from you on the siddha level. If there's anything you'd like to share, I know you always do if you do.
Hi, thank you. Only thing that comes to my mind or my heart is that we are beings of light and love, and that's our most basic nature, and it gets covered up. And I think now more than ever, it's really important that we allow ourselves to be that self, and not let the violence win, not let the violence dictate who we are, tell us that we have to be miserable and angry, or, and it doesn't mean that you don't feel emotions. It doesn't mean that you don't feel angry. It's like one thing to get angry, and it's another thing to be angry, you know what I mean? And that you kind of can go in and out of these very human experiences, but you don't get stuck in it. It doesn't, write itself on you. And that's always felt the best to me. Like you were saying, how the drive for activism comes from a place of love to begin with. And it comes from a place of wanting to bring truth into the world. And as someone that's always been a seeker of truth, I've always kind of gone against the status quo, not intentionally, but this is what ended up happening. And my mom even said, last time I was visiting her last December, she said, we were with a friend of hers, and she said, Nancy's always been a step ahead. I thought it was an interesting observation that she made, because I would have never guessed that she thought that, But and I kind of think it's true. I got into meditation when I was 16, which was back in 1971, when it was weird, and got into going vegan when it was still weird. But I think that's so important and the only way I've ever been able to get in touch with that is through meditation, and through just taking time to really dig into my space inside, because that's where we are, right in there. Yeah. So that's all I have to share. Thank you so much.
That was really nice. I like the energy behind that. I really feel your meditativeness and a very sweet, light kind of essence out of that. So that to me is also very real. So I guess a lot about this siddha is about being real. Some siddhas are really holy and refined, and some are really like sophisticated and full of meaning. This one just feels like it's about being real, because it seems like it's I just get that hit, and less do I want to try and do anything except allow whatever this. It's like what we're talking about tonight, letting the source come through us. And yes, we get to be us, but it's only when we get out of the way and let the meditativeness, take us. And so I guess and I'm just going to kind of bring it to a close here, and just say that I think we're kind of harbingers of the future as vegans. I think we're already bringing through our actions into the world, which is the first place it's going to come anyway, that peacefulness that the earth is ready to evolve to. I think the earth is ready. It's had enough of the struggle and the contention and the vile interaction that takes by force and that kind of thing. And so I really feel, in that sense, all of us as vegans, are kind of a collective that is being supported by the source, because the source not only works through us as individuals, it works through the collective, and of course always works with the universe all at once also, the whole big universe. And I think that collective is growing through us vegans to bring through a new kind of action that is the way of the future for beings of our level of evolution, meaning humans, and possibly what could be coming that might even be human plus, that are going to be vegan to start with. So I think we're kind of the how do you call it, the openers of the door for I think we literally are ushering in evolution as being vegans. So I think there is a specialness to it. Not in a vain way, though, just in a real way. That yes, we have a very special mission, and I feel very grateful to be a vegan and to be part of what's the future way of acting and carrying on when it comes to how we nourish ourselves, and not just how we nourish ourselves, how we clothe ourselves, everything that that up to now has been done and taken from nature with a lot of violence. I think that is no longer going to be supported soon, and so I just feel very grateful that I believe and feel that we're all on the right track as vegans, and that this is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. Um, so with that, I say thank you to everybody this evening for listening, and until the next meeting.